Welcome to Advanced Passion, the show where I invite a guest to tell me something that they are passionate about and then evangelize me about it. Could be a place, a person, a movie, a food, pretty much anything at all. I'm Ben Jack, and I'm delighted today to be joined on the podcast by the writer of this fantastic book, The Introverted Evangelist, Mr. Reuben Morley. Reuben, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks, Ben. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you on the show, partly because you're ace, partly because it gives me a great opportunity to big up this book, which I genuinely think is absolutely fantastic. And partly because I know that we're going to end up talking about some stuff that I think is going to be really helpful and fruitful for people to listen to today. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you get up to?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Ruben, as you've said. I'm married to an amazing lady called Tamar. We have 3 children, Isla, Robin, and Isaac. And we live in sunny Liverpool. And so not too far from yourselves at the Message with the amazing things that you do there. But as I said earlier, this is the best city, I say, in the world. It's God's city, and it's home to the best football team as well. And so I have a passion. This isn't what I'm talking about today, but I have an ultimate passion for Jesus and to see people come to faith. I work for the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, so we work with churches across the nation, equipping Christians to be confident in proclaiming the gospel and sharing their faith and building personal relationships that can see amazing fruit and see people become Christians. And I'm here today with you. I'm an author, got a book that you've already plugged for me, so thank you. And yeah, like I said, it's great to be with you.
Tell us a bit more about this this book. So The Introverted Evangelist, the clues in the title, you're looking at the idea of evangelism not just being for the extroverts, for the ones with the big mouths, that can chat.
That's it. Evangelism is for each and every one of us. We're all called to preach the gospel. The Bible makes that clear. It's something that I discovered through my years growing up in the church. It's something that I shied away from for many years because I didn't feel that I was called to it. I didn't feel that it was something that I had to do due to my personality type. But very soon after reading the Bible seriously, I grew in conviction that it's something for all of us. And so this was a book really written to help those that either feel disqualified from sharing their faith or don't feel it's something they're called to. And it's for everyone, but it's specifically for those type of people. And I hope and I pray that through the chapters of the book, you'll be encouraged and you'll stirred. And ultimately, one of the big takeaways is that if we want to grow in confidence to share our faith, and we want to be able to do that, whether as extroverts or introverts, one of the most important things is to know Jesus and have a personal, real relationship, a vibrant relationship with him, and then everything else will flow from that. So I share a few things that I've learned on the journey and how I've overcome a lot of my fears. Not that they've all gone away, but how I've overcome many to be able to step up and open my mouth and proclaim the gospel as we're called to do.
Yeah, so do go grab a copy of this book. You can get it on Amazon and all the usual kind of places like that. But amazingly, if you want to read a digital copy, a PDF copy, download it onto your phone and stuff, people can actually get this incredible book for free.
Yes, they can.
Why are you giving it away for free, Ruben? Does that mean it's not very good? When people give stuff away free, that means it's not very good.
It's not very good. I want to get my Amazon reviews up. No, it's the honest thought is that, I published it myself. It was the easiest thing to do. And I wanted to truly get it into the hands of as many people as possible. And if that means that it's for free, then that's fine. I just want people to be blessed and encouraged. So seriously, if you just want to check it out, even before maybe you commit to buying, just go and download it for free. And it'll be sent. You'll receive the link automatically. Just go to theintrovertedevangelist.co.uk. You'll be able to get it there.
There you go. Introvertedevangelist.co.uk. Go download free copy of the book. It genuinely is fantastic. And, like you, I'm sure, Ruben, reading books about evangelism all day, every day. Feels like the only thing I ever read about is evangelism, which is good. It's good to be reading about that. But, I've read so many books, countless books on evangelism, on the evangelist, on the gospel and so on. And what I love about your book is that it just brings into really clear focus what the gospel is, the hope of its transforming effects in every person's life, not a particular personality subsection, not just the extroverts, but every single person. And then the reality that God's delight and desire is that the whole church should take the whole gospel to the whole world. I found it super helpful. Genuinely, I found it super helpful, and I encourage people to go read it and check it out. Now we're going to talk about your passion. and I'm excited to get into this a little bit today. You've already told me. Now I get a sneak peek. Sometimes people don't tell me what it is, and I come on and I'm as surprised as everybody else when they start speaking. But I already know what you're going to talk about today, and I'm excited because I could not be less passionate about what you're going to tell us about today.
You, Ben.
And I want to see if you can win me round, and if you could maybe bring some change to my life. To be honest, I feel like I need change in this area, so maybe maybe this is a good thing. So let's see. So what is going to be your passion today, Ruben?
So my passion is running. It's running. Yeah. It's getting. See,
I already feel a little bit sick. I already feel a bit anxious.
Putting those miles in, whether it's sun, rain, snow, just getting out there and running.
Yeah. Why running? Talk me through it then. Why are you so passionate about running?
You know, for a long, long time, for over 20 years, I've absolutely loved running, even to the point where I remember, and I probably would never do this again, but I remember being in my early 20s and going on holiday to Portugal with my parents and just deciding in the sun and in the heat where I could just sit by the pool and read a book and do a little swim that I would run 108 miles in 6 days. Now, that was interesting for me, and I threw up a few times on the side of the road, but I love just being able to get out and just run. And there's a number of reasons for that, and I'll touch on a few of those, but I thought I'd start by and Google's my best friend, so I thought I'd just read some benefits for you of running. So yourself and
give me the facts
that are here. So here they are. So benefit 1, many studies show that running adds years to your life and life to your years. So it doesn't just
I've got to be honest, whenever I go running, I feel like years are coming off my life.
Well, that'll change. Benefit 2, it keeps you healthy. It helps you lose weight. It's a given, really. It helps improve your immune system. Benefit 3, it's well known that running can improve mental health. Sometimes, you know, I'm in the house and I'm just being a bit moody with the kids or with the wife, and probably I should spend time with Jesus, but Tamar, my wife, will go, Ruben, I know what you need to do. You need to go for a run. So she'll send me out packing and I'll go for a run. And sometimes it just makes me feel better. And exercise such as running, it helps you sleep well, and sleep is important. I love to sleep, and I sleep no better than after a nice run. But I was thinking about things that reasons why I love running so much, and there's a few. But one of them is this, and it's that no matter what level you are, so Ben, whether you see yourself as a great runner or it's something that you don't do very often, so you hate it, what I love about running is there's no entrance level. It's not that you have to be a certain standard, but actually whatever level you're at, you can go out against yourself and just look to improve your fitness. That it's not like joining a football team necessarily and then not being at the standard and being looked at as that you're a lesser person. Sometimes it's no, you can just go out whatever weight you are, you just go for it. And I think about that in terms of competition as well. And unless you're at an elite level, when you go to these races, whether it's the marathon or half marathon, or you're just out on the road, other runners, they're supporting you. It's not as if you're having a bad game and you get subbed off. It's no, they come alongside, they encourage you, they want you to do better. And there's a real camaraderie in that in regards to running. They'll encourage you on, and alongside that, you feel when you start running more, you feel as though you become part of a global community. It's like you become part of a global family. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Have you heard of something called the runner's nod?
No, I haven't.
So if you're a runner, so I know Phil Knox, if Phil Knox is watching this, he will be smiling and laughing because he will have heard of the runner's nod. And for new runners, it's like you've been brought into this secret club. And basically what it is you're out running and you come across another runner, and not a word needs to be spoken, but you'll just nod at each other. And it's as if to say, I respect you for being out on the road. We may never
solidarity
see each other again, but there's that solidarity. I can see that you're putting the effort in, you're putting the miles in.
Right.
And there is that togetherness. And, you know, one thing I've learned is that whether you're really good at running and you've put the miles in to get better or not, you can go out and enjoy yourself. But what I've also learned in the last week is never run a big race without training. And so I signed up for the marathon pre-COVID. And I was telling myself, I'm going to try and get the best time. The best time that I can get personally. I'm going to put the miles in. I'm going to train hard. I'm going to enjoy it. And then it got postponed. And then it got postponed again. And it ended up taking place last weekend. And because I'm quite determined as a person, I thought, you know what? I haven't trained. It's been a busy season for me. We've moved house. The girls have moved school. Work's been busy. I just had a lot on. And so I haven't done much running at all. And I thought, you know what? I'm still going to run the marathon. And I've got to say that it was quite a big mistake, especially when I started off too fast. I told myself, I saw a few friends on the line, I said, I'm not going to start off too fast. And that's exactly what I did. And around 15 miles in, my legs just decided, we're giving up, Ruben, we're stopping. And I started to get cramp in my calves, my thighs, and my hamstrings. So the last 8 miles or so, I was walking, and then I was walking and running and just doing my best. But actually in that period, it made me quite emotional, not just because I was physically and mentally exhausted, but I started to see the spirit of that running community, in that a number of times people came alongside, giving up their own times to help me. So I remember pulling up with cramp, and someone comes alongside me, and some people may not like this, but he's massaging my muscle. He's trying to get the cramp out. And then a little bit later, I pull up again in agony with cramp, and someone sees me further ahead, and they stop and they come back and they give me like a salt capsule. And I tell him, you've got to be careful. He could have been giving you anything, but I knew it was this salt capsule. And if I take that with water, it's going to help the cramp. And then towards the end again, I'd just frozen up so much and stiffened up so much. I was literally, the last few miles, couldn't bend my legs, and people are getting me alongside and they're running with me. And just in regards to that, and I'll be honest, I love the Lord. And so for me, when I'm out running, it's a time when the Lord will really speak to me. With the busyness of life, a lot of time I'll read the Bible at home, I'll do a lot of the disciplines, but when I just want to spend time in the quiet with God, it can be quite difficult with a house full of kids. And so that's where I go out run into the countryside and just have that time. And as I'm running this marathon, I'm just thinking, isn't this a beautiful picture of what the church should be like? Because they're pulling me along when I'm struggling, and it's that self-sacrificial giving, in a sense, that you see within the running community, that you really, when you buy into it, you're one family. And it doesn't matter, again, what standard you are, what you're like. We're in this together, and we're going to see this through together. It doesn't matter about my time. It doesn't matter if it's an inconvenience. And I was an inconvenience to quite a few runners on that day, but they stopped and they helped me. So that's another reason why I absolutely love running. It's the togetherness, it's the lack of competition against each other, but we're for one another. It's the fitness side of things. It makes me feel so much better in terms of just getting out there and staying fit. And as I said, for me, it's a real special time when I spend time with the Lord. So I literally will just go out, I'll stick the music on, I'll have worship music on, and I'll sing along. And then I'll be somewhere where I feel that I can just pray out loud and talk to God. I'll have times where I'll stop and I'll just find that secluded place, which you can do, to be fair, if you're walking or running. But I'll find that place where I can just say, God, speak to me. I need you. And so that's really nice. And so they're just a few of the reasons why I love running.
Beautiful. Now there's my mind's going off in 25 different directions here. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I want to pick up on and talk about. I love the fact that you're talking about community and the unexpected, sometimes community, sacrificial community that can come. And what I find fascinating about, I think maybe something cool to talk about first of all, is when we think about team sports, it's obvious why your teammates will keep you going. It's obvious why your teammates will cheer you on, will try to get your performance level up, because if you succeed, the team succeeds.
Yes.
What's interesting about running is that there's no gain or benefit to anybody running the marathon stopping to come and help you achieve your goals. In fact, it's a hindrance to them achieving their goals. And I find that fascinating. And I do wonder sometimes if our mindset, perhaps in our church community, is a little bit too much team sport. Like, how can we help each other so that we can go together as a team, and not enough running? What price can we pay so that others can get over the finish line, irrespective of whether it means that we don't get over the finish line in the same time that we wanted to? Do you know what I mean? I wonder if there's more for us to learn from the running community than there is from the team sport community in some ways, because we tend to default to like, team, let's work together. And of course, there's loads of great stuff to take from that, loads of good principles. But I've never heard anybody really talk about the running community as a better model in some ways for sacrificial community.
And listen, I've seen it at the top level. There's just there'll be runners that I follow that are very good runners, and they're pro athletes. They're doing marathons in 2:30, 2:40, very good times. And one recently, it became big news, and a lot of the Sky and the BBC, they picked up on it because he's running to win. He's running to do as best he can. And again, around a quarter of a mile from the end, one of his opponents is struggling, and he's struggling to stay up. And what does he do? He stops. He gets his arm, and he carries him over the finish line and walks with him. And like you said, there's something really special about that, and something that we can probably learn as Christians and as the church, in just going out of our way, self-sacrifice. There's something I can learn even when it switches over. Am I going to be willing to help my brother or sister when it's necessarily no benefit to me? Actually, it's going to eat into my time that I want to give to something else.
I also think there's something fascinating that we learn about human, like what humans value ultimately, because if someone wins a regional marathon, let's say Liverpool has a marathon, right? So someone wins the Liverpool marathon or the Merseyside marathon, whatever it is. That's not getting on the front page of the BBC News. It's because it's a regional marathon. And it's like, if you dig deeply enough into local news, you'll find, yep, such and such won the Liverpool marathon today. But someone at the Liverpool marathon stops on the finish line, looks back, turns back, helps the person that fell over, picks them up, helps them over the finish line before they finish. Suddenly the BBC are like, wow, that's an interesting story. And they put it, and people celebrate that even more than the person being victorious in the race that they've run. And I think even that shows you that within us, somewhere within us, we don't actually buy the idea that success is about winning.
I love that.
There's something deeper within us, that even those who are sold out for win, 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 there's something within us that knows there's actually something more profound than just crossing the finish line.
Yeah, definitely. I think I just think of the scripture, 1 Peter 3:15, set apart Christ as Lord, and always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that you have. And I think that and I think it's for all of us, not necessarily just Christians, but there's something, like you said, on that deeper level where it's, as Christians, we want people to see something different in us. And I think that as the church, we're called to do that as well, see something different in us, so they want what we've got. And I think when you see that naturally, just in the running community, they see something of what we're called to be as humanity, and they say there's something more important than just winning a race. It's coming alongside and showing that support and that care to your fellow person.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. And 1 Peter 3:15, another way of translating that passage is to say, revere Christ as holy, which again, you said set apart, same difference, that God is set. So we're to set God apart because he is set apart. So what we're really being asked to do is recognize him for who he is. We're being asked to respond to him in accordance with who he is, set him apart, because he is set apart. He is holy, and his holiness defines everything that follows. The holiness of God defines our own evangelism and response to the world. And when it comes to this kind of metaphor that we're pressing into a little bit with the running, it's about a holy response that often looks different to the expected response. The holy response is not just crossing the line at the expense of someone else. The holy response is helping someone else over the line, even if it costs me. That holiness that sits at the heart of the gospel, that sits at the heart of the identity of God, and that should sit at the heart of our life as we let the lordship of Christ really take control and lead us into what he's got for us.
And again, just to circle onto another point, you've got this race, whatever race it is, people are finishing at different times.
Right.
And I love that, as I said at the beginning, just regarding, to qualify for a marathon, unless it's, a certain kind, you can go in at any level. And I think that's a beautiful picture of the gospel, that we don't have to, and it's a very simple point, but we don't have to be a certain standard to fall in love with running. We don't have to be a certain standard to join in the race and run the race.
Right.
But actually we're accepted for who we are, and we can run and we can go forward. And that's just as much for me as it is for you, Ben. You can, if you wanted to, you could lace up those shoes and just go out, and you're going to get that runner's nod. You're going to get that well done. You're doing it. I respect you. This is great.
I tell you what, I'm happy to do it evangelistically, but not actually running wise. But I do like you've convinced me already in the short time. You've convinced me that running is a better metaphor for what we are to do than team sports are. And like I said, there's valuable insights from team sports to help us think about how we can work together. But already in this short time, I'm like, no, the running metaphor, as you've described it, has a lot of value that I think in some ways even better than the team sport metaphor.
What you'll find as well within running is people chase PBs. They chase what's called a personal best. It's their personal best. They're not necessarily trying to beat another person's time. All they're trying to do is better themselves. And when I think of things like football, you're looking to beat your opponent. You're looking to find the advantage over them. But it's self-focused in the sense that I just want to be the best person that I can be. And I think that it's that whole stripping back of comparison. And I think that's important within the church and the body of Christ today as well, that we don't need to compare ourselves to other people. Again, we don't want to get caught up in works and our own lives, and we're made right through Christ alone. But we can just focus in on ourselves and on the gospel and say, how can I be the best person that I can be, instead of saying, well, I want to be better than them and I need to up there and I need to do this to get in front of them. It's not about that. We're a team. We're all together. We're in this together. We're running the race together. We're there to support one another. And we don't need to be looking left and right and comparing ourselves to the next evangelist or the next Christian and feeling despondent or feeling prideful because whichever way they're better than us or they're not doing as well as us. We can just run our race.
You deal with comparison quite a lot in the book. Inevitably, part of the problem with an introvert looking and thinking that they can't do evangelism is seeing it outworked by extroverts and those who seem very confident, seem very skilled with their articulation and their communication. And it's as much about comparison as it is just an internalized self-doubt, isn't it? It's not just, I'm an introvert, God doesn't want introverts to do it. It's, I'm an introvert and it seems like extroverts are more able to do it.
Yeah,
because we see it and we think I don't measure up to that. So like in your view, how do we help people to overcome the challenges of comparison? And is all comparison bad, or is there any value to it?
You're asking the questions. I would say that we just need to, and it sounds like a very cliche answer, but we need to know that we're loved by God. We need to know that our identity is found in him alone, that actually we don't gain acceptance from anybody else. We don't have to impress anybody else. But because of what Christ has done, God loves us. He's impressed by us. That's why he sent Jesus in the first place. So it's securing that in our hearts and having that truth settled within us. So we're not looking exterior for approval or for the pat on the back. That stuff, though it can be nice, it doesn't really matter. And I think that breaks a lot of comparison, because you're comfortable in your own skin, you're comfortable who God's made you, and you're comfortable for the will that he has for your life and what journey and what race he has you in. The second part you said is all comparison bad? No, I don't think all comparison is bad. I think it's the heart behind the comparison. I don't think all comparison is bad at all, because we can learn from one another and we can improve from one another, and we can compare whether it's preaching styles or it's whether it can be how people have dealt with certain situations. So I think comparison actually can be a strength if it's done in the right way and in the right heart. But what we need to get rid of is that toxic comparison, is that I'm not good enough, or just putting yourself down. I'll never be able to share my faith because everybody else is better than me. But actually, you'd be surprised if you were to simply trust who God's called you to be, and allow your conviction to speak louder than your fear, and step out into those uncomfortable situations, as we spoke about earlier, what God can do through your life. So
I've been thinking a lot about this kind of area of comparison recently, and thinking, I think one of the problems that we have with comparison is that we kind of think that comparison is a neutral thing. Like I'll compare just as a stock check to see how I'm doing. And it's almost kind of like we kind of think mentally, I'll just compare, and it's kind of like a neutral thing. And I the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's the worst position that we can take. Comparison is not neutral. It can be positive and it can be negative, but it's never neutral. And I think the difference is, does your comparison lead to inspiration or condemnation?
I love that.
And so as you're comparing yourself to somebody else, are you inspired by that person? Wow, that's inspirational. And I'm going to grow from that, and I'm going to learn from that, and I'm going to, or are we inspired to encourage that other person? So because the other challenge is that sometimes we compare favorably. We're talking about it here as comparing unfavorably. We see somebody we think that we're unfavorable next to their ability level, and so we're discouraged. But actually, if we're inspired, wow, that's fantastic. I feel like I can take a lot of encouragement because that person's really good and I want to grow in a similar way. But also, when we see somebody and we're like, oh, I'm better than them, we compare favorably to them, and we're like, oh, I'm better than them. Do we allow ourselves to be inspired to the point where I'm like, well, I wonder if I can pass some of my skills on. I wonder if I could encourage. I wonder if I could affirm. So I think there's an inspiration, whether we compare favorably or unfavorably. But the converse, the negative, is the condemnation. We look at somebody and we condemn ourselves. They're too good. I'll never be that good. And we're discouraged. But I think also if we compare favorably to that person, we condemn them. Oh, we're better than them. They're not very good. And that's the end of it. And it's like we use that to massage our own ego, and that's not
both,
a good thing,
and
right?
both on that side, both aren't going to do any good long term. So it's just not going to help.
How would you encourage people to keep the mindset? Because I think it's inevitable that we'll compare. If we're aware that it's never going to be a neutral thing, how can we avoid the condemnation and press into the inspiration?
I think that I think it's having an awareness, first of all, just from what we've discussed, it's having an awareness that can take place. You need to be aware that if you slip into those things, and it's very much on what we've already touched upon. But I think a lot of the time and this is where I say this all the time, but I can come across very simplistic. But I think if we keep our heart pure before God and we just spend time in relationship with him, spend time in his presence, it softens our heart. And so that side of things that you touched on, that's just not natural. That just starts to become yucky. We don't want to say, well, I'm that guy that just got up to share, or that guy that just communicated the gospel. They didn't do very well. I'm much better than that. Now, we can all fall into that, but I'd like to think we can come to a place where we just don't go there anymore, because it's not God's heart. And so, I think that's really important. And I think that we need to grow better on the other side of, if we see somebody with a real gifting and we recognize that, and we can even say, oh my goodness, that person is really flourishing it on that side of things, and I need to grow in that we learn to be able to go up to them and say, hey man, you're amazing, and I want to, can you teach me, or can I learn? Can you give me pointer? That stuff's okay. And I think it's just being aware that it's okay to do those kind of things, and just making a habit of doing those things as well.
Definitely. You mentioned there about, like, it's quite a simple point to keep yourself pure before the Lord, but I feel like increasingly I'm noticing people almost reject simple truth in favor of a much more convoluted, complex response. But when you actually drill down into what's going on, they've rejected a simplicity that they were never actually engaged with. So what I mean by that is, you'll say, this might be a bit simple, but, and then you offer, and people are like, yeah, I think that's just too simplistic, and I think it's actually this. And sometimes I kind of want to say, well, it might be too simplistic, but have you actually tried it? Have you actually pressed into that? And what I'm finding increasingly, and hey, look, I won't even put it on anybody else, even in my own life, I think sometimes I'm quick to dismiss the basics, the simple basics, in favor of something more advanced in some way.
This is the thing. If we want some of those things to be gone from our lives, if we don't want that stuff, then Jesus talks about in the Gospels about abiding in him. And we read in Galatians about the fruit of the Spirit. And again, I'll just say it's really simple. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's really simple in that it's not the fruit of Ben. It's not something that we're trying to force and make happen. It's the fruit of the Holy Spirit. And so when we abide in him, love, joy, peace, patience, all those kind of fruits that are described in, I believe it's Galatians 5, they start to be what we produce when we simply abide in him. So everything drills down to, where are we with God? When was our last quiet time? When was our last time when we just opened our heart and just gave everything to him? And it always, for me, comes back to that. If I'm having a really difficult time and I'm seeing comparisons spring up in the wrong way and other things, I know that something's wrong here in the root level, and that's where I need to go to. Instead of trying to read a 300-page book on this or that and try and get to the psychology side of things, it's just spend time with Jesus.
And I guess as well, fellowship with trusted friends and believers that we can be accountable
Yeah,
to,
vulnerable
share
and
life. Yeah,
accountable is
vulnerable,
important.
open.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's really, really important. And I think that's really helpful to have those people around you that you can lean on, that you can be honest with and say, this is something I'm struggling with.
yeah.
And just asking for wisdom and asking for prayer and asking for counsel is really important as well.
One aspect of the fruit of the Spirit is patience. And you talked earlier about the problem that you had in your running was that you didn't pace yourself. You didn't
Yes.
pace yourself. So how do we find the right balance in our evangelism, in our witness as we're going into the world? What principles can we take from the idea of pacing ourselves and patience? Because sometimes we can be so keen to just go win the world, save the world, that we can get a little bit ahead of ourselves. And then again, if we don't see necessarily the immediate fruit that we hoped for, the responses that we hoped for, but also we can burn out, we can offend people. And it's not that we're afraid of offending people per se, but what we don't want to do is unnecessarily offend people through things that aren't gospel offense, because we need to make a distinction. There's practice that we can have that can be offensive, and we can defend the practice, but it's the gospel.
This is something that I've juggled with, because I can give you countless stories where I haven't been patient in evangelism, because I've wanted to see salvation, not recognizing that it's truly God's responsibility and the Holy Spirit's job, that I've tried to. So an example, I will have sat down with the right intention. I'll have sat down next to somebody in town, maybe a homeless person that I feel that they need Jesus. If they need Jesus, their life is going to turn around, which is true. And so I'll sit down and have a conversation with them, and I'm not really listening to them. I'm just letting them say their part, and I'm thinking how I can manipulate that conversation to get them to say a prayer of salvation, to be able to say, hey, they've become a Christian. And I know a lot of great people that have fallen into that trap, and it all becomes about the numbers or this or that. And actually, it's about having patience and being able to trust God and recognizing that he is the one that truly opens blind eyes. He's the one that turns the light on. And we've got to keep in step with the Holy Spirit. And so I think that takes, when we recognize that it's God's responsibility, it does take the pressure off. And we can say, you know what? I'm not going to shy away from being bold and share my faith, but I'm going to use wisdom, and I'm going to share what I feel is right to share in the moment. And I'm sure you've had many conversations with people where you've had God moments where you've been able to pray with them and talk with them, but you probably in that moment haven't felt it's right to say, right now we're going to say this, and it's like, it's just recognizing that, yes, you want to do everything you can to lead people over the line and make a commitment of faith and be able to plug them into the local church, but also just recognizing that they're on a journey, and we can sow seeds as we have with the parable of the sower, that we can be faithful in just sowing that gospel seed, and recognizing that in due course and due time that God will work. And I think patience is really important, and I think it's a lot of us that struggle with that, especially when it's loved ones, and when we just want to see that happen straight away.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm an absolute advocate that every conversation that we have that's kind of leading someone in the direction of Jesus and the gospel should have an invitation. But what kind of invitation it has, that's what's up for the wisdom of heaven to speak to us. Because it's not that every conversation has to have the full invitation to, do you want to receive Christ? Do you want to give your life to Jesus? But it needs to have some kind of intentionality of, would you like to meet up again and chat more about this?
Yes.
Would you like to take this Bible and read it? Would you like me to pray for you?
It's those steps.
Like, there's 1,001 invitations that we can offer, but in some way we're offering the next little step that could transition, but having the patience and the wisdom to rely on God in his timing to hit that moment when it comes. Of course, we need to be also careful that we're not missing a moment when God would have us offer the full, come on, you need to make Jesus Lord here. But again, like, there by the grace of God we go, and there by his leading. It doesn't have to happen like in an instantaneous moment of every single conversation ends the same way. That, like you said, tends to be more about results than reconciliation.
Number driven. And I think if you win them that way, they'll probably fall away just as quickly, because it's not necessarily a conversion of, by the Holy Spirit. But I think you're spot on. I think that you've got to look at different ways to have that invitation. And it could be, hey, like you said, here's a Bible. Let me pray for you. Let me plug you in with people in your area that can help. Let's meet up for a coffee at a later date. And I think that, again, just when you get into the habit of doing that again, it allows you to have patience, because you recognize that not everything has to happen on that day. You can go on a journey with them and walk them through things, and trust that God will take care of the growth.
Absolutely. And that's the reminder, isn't it, of letting God be God, and sensing our role in what God's calling us to, but ultimately letting God be God.
Yes.
So we're coming to the end of our time together, and you haven't won me over in going running. I'm not lacing my I'm not lacing my running shoes up.
I'll just come down to the message and say, hey, we're going.
Drag me out. Yeah, drag me out. But what you have done is you've massively got me thinking around some of the appropriateness of the metaphors that we use sometimes, and how, as good as they seem, they can sometimes lead us just slightly off base of where we need to be. Again, the whole team sports individual runner thing. And I'm fully in the camp now that actually there's so much gold to be mined from the concept of running, the running community, the sacrificial, the personal best, and all of those things, pacing yourself. I love it. It's brilliant. And of course, this is me 2,000 years later getting on board with what Paul himself is writing about running the race and playing by the rules like a good athlete and all these things. It's all there. It's nothing new under the sun in that sense. But if you were going to, go to a church right now and say, I'm going to do a bunch of evangelism training for you. I've learned some stuff from being an evangelist. I've learned some stuff from working with other evangelists. I've learned some stuff from reading my Bible. I've learned some stuff from running. What would be the one thing that you would really want people to take away from your training and your teaching, other than, a better understanding of the gospel itself, I guess?
Yeah, well, that's where I was leaning first, and
I could see it in your eye. I could see it. I was like, I'm not going to let him just say the gospel.
I go, it's really simple.
Just got a gospel glint in his eye.
It's that whole, knowing Jesus to make him known. I think that is, again, that's so important.
Yeah.
I think it's as we've touched on already, it's having a confidence that God is with you, that he's working through you, that it's not all about what you do. It's recognizing that there's not necessarily anything called failure, that every time, even if we have a difficult conversation, that God is working in that. But I would say having confidence and knowing that God is with you in those moments, and just being real to yourself, not trying to be anyone else. I spent so many years trying to be, let's just put it out there, trying to be Todd White, because I'd see Todd White, an evangelist in America that just seemed to see so much fruit, and he had this amazing personality and character. And I thought, if I can just be him, that's the answer. Everyone's going to come to Christ. And I just wore myself out trying to be someone that God hadn't called me to be. So I would be if I'm in a church, I'm going to say, hey, we're all wired slightly differently. God's made us slightly differently, and you've got to be who you're called to be. And some of the best evangelists are some of the most quiet, but they can come alongside. They know how to listen to people. They know how to sit down and pray with people in a different way. And I'd say, just step out and trust God in the process, and just see what he wants to do.
Amazing. If you want to check out Ruben's fantastic book, The Introverted Evangelist, then you can go to, is it The Introverted or just introvertedevangelist.co.uk?
The introvertedevangelist.co.uk.
The introvertedevangelist.co.uk. You can grab yourself a free downloadable PDF, but then I would recommend for you to go and purchase some physical copies, give them away. And there's study questions in here that you can use for groups. And you could do this as a group study with your church, with a bunch of friends or whatever. And I guarantee you, if you do that, it will have an impact on the way that you think about the gospel, the way that you think about God's precious love for you, and how that precious love can be revealed into the world around you. Ruben, where can people connect with you if they want to get in touch, find out more about you, ask questions, all of that stuff?
Instagram, Twitter, Ruben JM. So REUBENJM. And Instagram tends to be where I hang out nowadays. But yeah, just connect with me however you can. Just find me on there and we'll talk.
Amazing. You might get some anti-Liverpool FC spam in your folder.
People sending Man City stuff and Man United stuff and all that.
It's par for the course, mate. That's how it goes. Mate, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast
thank
today.
You for having me.
So much good stuff to get into. I'm sure we'll have you back on again, and we can we can pick another
Thank you,
passion
mate.
and see where we go. As long as it's not another kind of thing that's going to mean I have to go and do running or athletics or something.
No, we'll stay away from that next time.
No one's doing like cooking or anything where I can be like, oh great, like baking. I want someone to come on and talk about baking.
Get you excited
and then
about baking big cakes.
And then I'll have an excuse to go bake a cake.
Your guests, whether it's like London or Coldplay concerts or, you know, islands. I'm talking about running. So I think you've had some great things so far.
People have been getting creative. I'm still waiting. And maybe at like the end of this year, the first year of the podcast, we'll do like awards for the most random passions or so. I don't know. I think you would win the award for the best metaphor so far. I think the running metaphor is putting us in. But then I feel like you've stolen it from the New Testament as well. So I'm not sure if
probably
you can have the full,
nothing, like you said, nothing new under the sun.
It is what it is. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the video. That helps us a lot with getting these videos promoted by YouTube to other viewers. No one knows how the YouTube algorithms work. Let's be honest. It's more of a mystery than the Trinity, but apparently it helps if you like us. So do that. Leave a comment below and we'd love to stay in touch with you. In the meantime, we will see you next time.